Hey guys, Stealth here, and let me introduce you today to Sprocket. Although, well, let me introduce you today. There have been a lot of comments asking, hey, when are you going to cover Sprocket? I thought, what the hell is Sprocket? Sprocket is a game where you design your own tank. And we have had very few of those in the past. At least I couldn't really remember one. I might be wrong about that. I'm not fully hardcore into the whole design your own stuff genre. But Sprocket, for me, it kind of came out of nowhere. Let me show you around. Let me show you what we can do. I'm going to open up the sandbox. We're going to do a few scenarios, potentially, depending on whether I have time for that today. This is the sandbox. You can set up your own tank. As far as I know, there are no enemies in the sandbox, so it is purely there to just practice designing a tank. Design your ultimate tank at that. So how do you do that? How do you design your own tank? Well, the game has a few basic buttons that you need to be aware of. Over on the left, we have the base of the tank, mobility, firepower, crew, and livery. Livery, in case you don't know the term, is what should it look like. In this case, we're going to start with the base, and then on the right-hand side, you have a couple of subsections in the form of the hull and the turret. Now, the hull is the hull of the tank, but it also includes how wide are the tracks, for example. And yes, you can make all sorts of unholy creations. These platforms that your tracks currently rest on are not at all limiting. Because you can say, you know what, I want to have the mother of all tanks. It's not going to go anywhere. But it is going to be a very, very wide vehicle. The same thing can be done for the turret. If you click the turret size, you can have the turret be wider, you can have it be longer, you can decide how much or how little of a slope you want on it. And the game also goes into detail about how armored it is. Because if you hit the armor tab here, you can say, you know what, the cheeks, they're currently 10 millimeters. But because they're already heavily angled, they're effectively 13 millimeters. If I armor that up to, let's say, 75 millimeters, I all of a sudden have, from this angle, an effective millimeter or effective thickness of 84, but here of 350, because if a shell hits like that, the ricochet chance is far greater, because the hit angle is greater. So this is the way that you can go about designing your hull and your turret. If you go to mobility, this is where stuff can get really amusing. I had a great laugh at just how weird you can make your vehicles. Because if you go to the tracks part, you can have all sorts of changes. But one that I particularly love to use is the size of the road wheels. Road wheels on a tank are these things here. Oh, by the way, this, the wheel that pulls the track, if you will, that's the sprocket. Hence the name of the game. This one, you can make the wheels bigger. And you can have this monstrosity from hell. Or, quite the other way around, and you can have a ton of road wheels. Now, this is not just something you can adjust here, because you can also say, you know what, the sprocket wheel, so that part, I don't really like that, I'm going to adjust that. I'm also going to be adjusting the sprocket mount, although currently it's early game, there aren't any others available. The idler wheel is the one on the back, and that's the one that makes sure that the track stays at tension. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Oh, sorry, this is the idler wheel, this is the sprocket in this case. This is the front of the tank, though, right here. So if I go for a different sprocket, you can see that this thing changes. And you can have different road wheels. You can have these road wheels also here with how far forward are they relative to the vehicle? How high is the vehicle supposed to be? What is the spacing on the axle? You can have them really wide, and then you can also, of course, if you go back up, you can have the tracks really wide, which might give you advantages, but at the same time, it could give you disadvantages, because a wider track, more surface contact, it might slow you down, but you're gonna have a ton of traction. Speaking of the tracks, if I don't like the way that the track segments look, so one singular segment of track like that, I can adjust that. I can have currently 3 different versions of track. Now again, this game is early access. It came out, I think, August 28th or 29th, so very, very, very recently. And there are still a ton of changes being made to the game. And supposedly, according to the roadmap, in 2022, third quarter, so let's say maybe September a year from now, we are going to be having multiplayer. But then again, that's the roadmap. That's the roadmap. That does not mean that in a year from now it is guaranteed to have multiplayer. But just imagine being able to design your own tank and then being able to fight your friends, or enemies in that case, with that vehicle that you design. Other options that we have. Firepower. Let me just adjust the turret a little bit, because in its current shape it is going to be a bit difficult to mount the gun mantlet. Firepower tab, gun mount. You have light mantlets, mediums, and heavies. Let's go with the heavy mantlet for this one, and you can just click it into place. And now the gun kind of sticks out quite a bit. So back to base, back to turret, and we're going to change the forward offset to be a little bit further back. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that over here on the top you have internal space and internal space on the turret. These need to be in the green. Ideally, of course, you would make use of most of it, but it is not strictly required. I'm currently running a 42-ton tank, by the way. This thing is pretty heavy. And of course, yes, you can make this thing as heavy as you want. I think up to 65 tons, I think is what I had it. Anyway, firepower. Once we have a gun mount, you can move on to the cannon. And this is where your tank starts to really take shape, in the sense that you can have a sort of overview of how much damage can you inflict, or rather, no, let me rephrase that. Not how much damage, but how much pen. If you, in the current version of the game, if you hit something once, it dies. That is, if you pen it. So having a high penetration value is very, very useful. But you cannot simply say, you know what, I want to have a 250 mil on this. Because now my penetration is going down a lot. My penetration is now 19 millimeters versus, and you can see it here at 30 millimeters, 80 millimeters of pen. And then you go up, and then you get this sort of high point around 125, 127, and then it starts going down again. So you can have this sort of storm gun, if you will. The 152 comes to mind, although the 152 I think actually had a 152, something like that. But you can have this all the way up to 250. Just good luck hitting anything with it, especially at a muzzle velocity of 42 meters per second. This thing is ridiculously slow. You can also say how long you want the base of the barrel to be, and how long you want the barrel length to be. So you could have this monstrosity of a 250 millimeter tank, or 250 millimeter gun with a 0.75 millimeter shell, sorry, 0.75 meter shell, penetration value of 160. The problem is it doesn't quite want to fit, and that's probably not the only issue we have. Because if you go back to the gun mount, you can see this value, elevation rate, which is minus 0.1 degree per second, which means, pardon the pun, he can't get it up. You don't have the power in the turret to elevate this gun. Especially if you reduce this, the amount of torque that you apply, you just don't have the force required. So as amusing as this is, let's not. And let's see, now I'm at 0.6. Let's reduce the base barrel a bit more. Minus 2.6. Let's reduce the caliber. There. Now I can actually make sure that this thing will work. Now there are a lot of different things to adjust in the mobility section before you can really get this tank to be effective on the battlefield. Let me just make it a bit smaller. A bit less wide. There. Something else, by the way, before I forget to mention it over here. Upper glacis. So the front glacis or glacis you can just adjust as much as you see fit. And if you so desire, you can say, you know what, I do not want to have a turret. And if you don't have a turret, you're basically building something like the S-tank from the Swedes. Not necessarily less effective, just different. And before you guys ask, no, currently, and I'm thinking the developer might add this later, Currently, it is not possible to have multiple turrets. Maybe later, but not currently. What you can have in part of the crew, where is that? Anti-infantry. The fact that there is the option to add an anti-infantry turret, like, well, it's not strictly a coaxial, but something to the tune of that, means that there's likely going to be infantry. And if you so desire, you can make this super anti-infantry tank. I'm not sure exactly why you would want to, but this thing, well, we're either going to be taking out a lot of infantry, or currently none at all, but it has the option. So there is probably going to be infantry. Now, let's see if we can get this show on the road. Let me remove all of these guns here. I don't need those. Currently, the tank has a bit too much internal space usage, but I have a lot of space on my turret. So, what is using up all this hull space? Well, it's the crew, 36%. So let's have the crew, which are all currently sitting in the hull, move some of them to the turret. The commander can move to the turret, and I'm suddenly in the green. And I can have the driver stay in the hull, I can have the gunner move to the turret, I can have the loader move to the turret. And yes, if you are so inclined, you can have even the driver in the turret. Not sure how that would work, but you could do it. There are a few things that I still need. I need a driver's port, I need a gunner sight. Apparently I have a gunner sight, even though I didn't put it on. And I'm probably going to need a commander's cupola. And then a viewport for the driver. As it happens, I have the driver in the hull, but you can just have this viewport wherever, so long as it is somewhere on your tank. So, let's take this thing out for a spin. The tank moves. Sort of. We're doing about 10 kilometers an hour. You can see that on the top left-hand side. I just think that turning this thing is going to take a while. And then if we fire the gun, that works too. The gun sight is next to the gun, which makes it pretty easy to select where you want to be shooting. But maneuverability on this thing, kind of as you can expect, is not great. You can adjust that if you so desire. Mobility, transmission. Currently I have 8 gears, which you can upgrade to a lot. I can have 20 gears. And then if you want to make it easy for yourself, just hit G1 divided by N, and that adjusts the gear ratios. I also want to have a more powerful powertrain. So I want to have my engine be more powerful, and that's... where was that? Base? Hull? No. It was somewhere in mobility. Advanced? Yes, here. We're going to make this a 16... well, maybe not 16, 12-cylinder engine. And it's currently putting out 890 Newton per meter, I think. I'm terrible at stuff like that. You can have this thing be quite powerful, but now it does not fit anymore. So, solution, relocate the driver to the turret and potentially move some other stuff to the turret. Currently I spend 30% of my capacity for internal space on the lower hull on the turret basket. You can change that by making this thing higher. Now I'm spending less on the turret basket, but of course that means that my turret ring, that thing, is fragile. So that means that I now have to have a bit more armor there, if I can. Otherwise, I have to keep in mind that I can and potentially will get attacked over there. And if the shell pens, well, good luck, but you're basically dead. Let's see, let's reduce some of these transmission gears, because I might have gone a little overboard. Let's go back to 12 and reduce the cylinders back to 8. Adjust the transmission rates again. Let's see if this is any better. Move. No? Oh, it doesn't want to move at all. What is going on? I can do 2700 RPM, target max 1800, target minimum 1800, or sorry, 2400, 1800, sounds about fine. Let's reduce a few of the transmission gears and see if that helps. No, there's something not quite right with the transmission. Because Normally, when you press W or S, the tracks actually, or the vehicle actually moves, but now it doesn't do anything at all. I did hear that there was a problem with the transmission. I'm just not exactly sure what. Let's say that I am a heavy tank, severely underpowered. Okay, I want more displacement. I want more engine power. Nope, there's something not quite right with the transmission here. Alright, despite some testing, I couldn't quite get that to work. So let me show you some of the other vehicles that are already available in-game. You might recognize some of these tanks. The Centurion, for example. Really beautifully modeled tank. You got the, I think, side skirts defending the tracks. It's got a little bit of spare track on the front to provide additional armor. You got your spotlights. You got your instruments over there to get the tank unstuck or to do maintenance. Well, maintenance with an axe. We have the ventilation over there for the engine. We got the actual vents. And this thing moves very, very well. I like to take them, especially in the sandbox, over these little traps, if you will. Just to see how well they do. And just look at how silky smooth those tracks look. That is so beautifully done. And the tank just maintains perfect stability. Over here it might struggle a little more, because these are more difficult obstacles to navigate, but just look at that. I think it looks spectacular. Now this is definitely not one of my designs, in case you're curious. This is something that the devs already put in. Other tanks that you might recognize. This is the one-night stand between the Cromwell and the Matilda. This is the Cromtilda. It is a earlier war tank, and it is pretty decent, I've found. Of course, it's not as good as a Chieftain or any of the more modern tanks, but this thing maneuvers pretty well. If you so desire, you can still adjust it. You can still, of course, make changes to it and then adjust the tank to fit your needs or your purposes. What others do we have? Yeah, the Mantis and all the marks are basically my own. The Model 4. This is, I think, an FT-17. And it is an early war tank. A World War I tank. It is remarkably good for this era. Does it have armor? No, not really. It has an upper glacis armor of 21 millimeters, which is effectively 23. So don't expect to be bouncing a whole lot of stuff, but then again, there was not a whole lot that could hurt tanks that bad in World War I. And again, let me show you this thing off. It moves quite well. And I actually thought this thing is blisteringly fast. It's doing 23 kilometers an hour, which for World War I? Or maybe... Well, maybe not strictly right about that. Is this World War I? What do they say it is? That was the Mark... Oh, sorry, the Model 4. Yeah, World War I. That's the World War I era. Anyway, let me show you some of the scenarios that you can do. The scenarios are currently where you have your challenge. There is, unfortunately, at least in the current version, not something along the lines of a battle mode where you decide what your enemies are going to be. That is coming later. I just don't know when. The scenarios, we have no tanks land, ambush, dunes, silent border, railway, crossroad, fields, and Taiga. I'm going to start with Taiga because I had an interesting tank or an interesting time over there. We are starting in the woods. It is late war, top left-hand side, late war, and that means that you have quite a bit more advanced tech than you would with World War I tanks. Now your challenge is to design a vehicle that's going to be capable of defeating some other units. What other units these are, I don't know yet. But what you do know is that they will try to kill you. Considering that there is not a whole lot of terrain cover, going with something that is tall, and yes, you can make a rather unholy creation like this. And I could do the same thing with the base. And it is an absolute monstrosity, this thing. So if you're rolling around laughing at your keyboard, by all means. I mean, it's not supposed to be a serious vehicle, this. Here. So if you have the ability to shoot down, then I suppose this could work. It's hideous. It probably doesn't do very well. It has 0 armor. But this is, when you have a lot of cover, potentially a feasible design. Currently, I still need a driver's port. So I need I need both a gunnery sight and a driver's viewport. Put the driver's viewport over there and put the gunnery sight over here. And it moves. I am missing the commander's cupola, but apparently that's not a problem. Depending, I think, on how big you make your tank, you also get to... Ow. You also get to spawn in an ally. Look at that. Ow. See, in this case, this is not ideal. Considering what I'm up against, or rather the terrain in which I am up against it, I think a very flat tank, like an S tank, could work a whole lot better. So let's not go with a turret. I'm going to go with a tank that's as flat as possible. Has a very, very flat glacis, whatever you want to call it. And for firepower, we're going to go with a light mantlet that sits somewhere, or that has the gun sitting somewhere over here. And let's see, I would need a commander's cupola. I know that I am not doing very well for weight over there. I'm going to need a commander's cupola over there. Ventilation, all that stuff. It's currently, from what I've been able to construe, mostly artificial. It doesn't do anything. You don't strictly need to have it. But maybe that's going to change later. There, commander's viewport. Oh, sorry, gunnery viewport. When it comes to mobility, I don't need to be particularly quick. So I'd say a 4-cylinder engine could save me some weight. I'm going to reduce the displacement. And let's see about the tracks. I want to have this thing low. So I'm going to make it have fewer road wheels. But if I so want, I can change the suspension. Yeah, it's even lower. And although, I haven't even explained this. You got the sprocket. It's that thing. You can say how far sorry, no, the sprocket's the one on the back. You can say how far forward you want that. I'm not sure why exactly it reverts to 2. There's something not quite right there. Alright, that might have been a bug, or I'm not sure what, but it just kept moving forward. You can adjust the height of the sprocket, which will impact the way that the vehicle maneuvers. And the same thing can be done for the idler. So I can have this sort of sticking out, which would probably not be ideal. And I can have it like that. I can change the diameter. All of these things will adjust how effective or ineffective your vehicle is going to be. What sort of a gun did I put on here? A 75mm, which has a really high muzzle velocity and probably more pen than I actually need. So let's reduce that. And if I make it a bigger gun, of course my weight's going to go up. Maybe I need to make the tank a bit wider to adjust for the space inside, or for lacking a turret. Let's see. When it comes to the base, armor, upper glacis equals about 650mm because it is so sloped. So I suppose I can get away with having quite a bit less. This is going to be about 200. Let's go to 50mm. There. We also have this mid part. That's that thing right there. We have the front strip, which I would also like to be pretty heavily armored. Currently it's 125 and it's a pretty small target, which I hope to hide between or below terrain. And then we got the lower glacis like that. And alternatively, you can also have the, where is it? Yeah, you can have the whole tank moving backwards. That's the rear offset here. You can have the lower glacis also extremely flat or extremely angled, making yourself a more difficult target. Now, let's see if this monstrosity will work. Of course, we're going to need a paint job for it. And I suppose this might make me blend in. let's see. We are missing the gunner sight. Oh, right. I put on 2 driver's sight. I might have a problem here. I cannot leave my garage, if you will. So it looks like we might need to do something about the diameter of the road wheels. Make them a little taller. And then add for firepower the gunner sight. I'm going to do that over there. Well, that might be tricky. The tank might be too flat for what I need. So let's adjust the mobility, or let's adjust the glacis over here. There. And then put the gunner sight there. No, doesn't want to fit there. It's a bit weird. I have to relocate the driver, I guess. Unfortunately, with the gunner sight over there, it's going to be difficult to spot the enemy. Difficult, but hopefully not impossible. Now, I have a bit more internal space than I might like, so let's see if I can do something about the size of the engine and just make this thing more powerful with more cylinders. Let's adjust the transmission if it so needs to. There we go. I'm really flat. I believe the enemy is somewhere over there. But, since I don't have a turret, I need to rotate the whole tank. In a tank like this, having a good gun depression, like so, can also be very valuable. Considering how flat this vehicle is, I suppose the crew is lying down. Because I couldn't really imagine another way that these guys would actually be able to sit in the tank. Oh, contact. Front. Ooh, don't do that. Where are you? There you are. Missed. Reloading. Come here. Bounced, I think. Oh, come on. Bingo. That's one Super Cromwell dead. Unfortunately, the Super Cromwell took me out as well. That's the result of my damage. The damage that I took, that is. So, I get a second tank. Ow! And I got killed off again. Alright, return to the designer. Based on what we have here, I might need to make the side glacis a little bit more slanted. And thereby provide more side armor. But if I want to do that, I might have to make the tank a bit longer to ensure that I have more space. The problem that you now face is that your tank's going to be heavier with an engine that does not increase in size. And that means that you have effectively less horsepower per ton. Now this thing is huge at this point. Positively huge. It's also no longer got the gun centered. That could be a problem. Just trying to look around for a target. Not having a turret here is both a blessing and a curse. Because it means you have less sticking out. But having to rotate the whole hull is not ideal. Contact potentially there. Yeah, there. Turn. Okay, we're gonna have to put a turn on this thing. Because this is not quite going the way that I would like it. So let's remove the gun. And let's put a turret back on. Base, turret, enabled. No, not that behemoth. I'm gonna have something far smaller. I want to make sure I do have a turret. I just want to ensure that it is only there to provide room for the gun. Not much more than that. Midsection. Let's reduce the length. The front, I suppose, does not need to be particularly wide. Let's remove the command cupola and put that, I don't know, here? Is that gonna even fit? Alright, gun mount. Over there. Yeah, that looks great. It's not gonna cause issues at all. Now I have a bit less space in the turret than I would like. Unfortunately, I cannot move anybody around. So I suppose adjusting the size of the turret is the better way to go about it. Let's make it wider. The back is not that required. I can just make the whole thing longer. Yep, there. And now we're going to put it further back, like that. And I suppose I can now have the gunner sight in a more favorable position. Cannon, gun sight over there. Okay, so now I'm still pretty flat, except my turret. That could be a problem. Because with a turret like that, it's very easy for them to hit me in the turret. So, if I want to go with that, I can either adjust the shape of it, so adjust the shape of the turret, or make the front more angled, like that. But, by doing that, I once again run into size issues. If I make the front a little longer, I might be able to compensate. Make the middle even longer. There. This might just work. Let's see. Do I have an ally? Yeah, I have an ally. Good. This thing is so wide. It really doesn't want to turn very well. But I'm hoping that I can just have something sticking out that's enough of a threat to deal damage. Gun depression is still pretty good on this tank. Contact. Oh, the gunnery sight is blocked by the tank itself. Yeah, here. That's in a pretty terrible spot. Oh no, not again. I know I don't have room for the gunner sight. Oh, here, maybe. Here. Go. Where the hell is that viewport? Hold on. Oh! Gotcha. I'm still using this one. Don't. That's more like it. That's more like it. Let's once again go to the left. Try and use that terrain cover to the advantage of this tank. I didn't adjust the gun at all, which could be a problem. Contact. Missed. Definitely something out there. Bounced? Try again. I think I might not have the pen to kill that thing. At least not under this angle. Nope. Ooh. The armor took it. But I appear to be leaking fuel. There you are. Got him. That was a spatter. Hello. Could you not? Oh no, my turret's knocked out. Where did I die? There you are. Turn the turret! This thing doesn't want to work at all. Sometimes you have a bug in this game. It is still early access. Yep. There we go. Let's try again. But let's try again, potentially with a different tank. Let's try with the Chieftain. Centurion. My bad. Currently I have a bit too little interior space in the turret. So let's adjust the turret slightly. Making the mid a little longer there. Let's see if this thing will be more successful. It probably has a different armor scheme relative to what I had. Not necessarily better. Kill. That was a panther. There's another one out there. Reloading this gun takes a lot longer. There. Come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Missed. Need to aim higher. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. Come on. Gonna guesstimate. Got him. The Cat 216 is down. That's a friendly. See if I'm not getting flanked by anything. I don't think camo actually does anything at the moment, but I could be wrong about that. There. Kill. This is what I meant. You only need to hit something once in order to kill it. There you are. Kill. Anything else? Are you dead? Yeah, otherwise you'd be moving. Where is the last one? Turret rotation is pretty dreadful on this thing. Alright, let's advance. Whoops. Don't have enough speed to knock that tree down. Come on. Is that one dead? Yeah, just to be sure. There's something else out there. That one I knocked out early. Ooh, something's shooting me though. From where? There? There. Turn. No. Turn faster. Missed. I lost a track. The right track is gone. Yep, been defeated. Oh well. What other tank could we come up with here? I suppose a Cromtilda is not really up to snuff in this era, but it means that I might get more allies. See? Now I get a whole bunch more. So now we're strength in numbers. Because now I have 5 tanks. And they are all AI controlled. Well, except for mine, of course. This game is something that I've had a ton of fun with. Bounce. Ooh, they're not gonna bounce. One of my Cromwells took out a King Tiger. Okay, nice going. That's that guy cooked off. Victory! Barely did anything. But at least the tank design worked. Surprisingly. It worked. Right, let me show you some of the other weirder designs that I've created so far. Let's see, showroom. What I have created so far, the Mantis Mark II was this really weird contraption with a 250mm gun, but a shell length of 0.1 and a barrel length of 34 centimeters. Didn't really perform that well, because you couldn't hit. We had the... Oh yeah, the Mark III. Almost akin to, I think, the Grille 15 from World of Tanks. Pretty punchy gun at 106mm. It can pen 154. It has a really high muzzle velocity. Unfortunately, armor on this thing proved lacking. What else did I make? Yeah, this unholy contraption. It's more of a, I suppose, a tankette than a tank. But I had fun with it regardless. Anyway, I'm going to end this video on Sprocket here. I just want to show you guys what the game is, what the game does, and what the game can do for you. It is early days, but it's then again also, I think, only priced at about 20 bucks or 18 euros. And I have had a ton of fun with this game. I hope you will too. Link down below in the description is a link to the game. And, well, let me know what sort of weird and unholy contraptions you can come up with. For reference, I have considered and I have been requested to make Taskmaster-like videos on this, where I take on other content creators in a particular task, but in the current version of the game, I think that is very difficult. I think the game is not quite at that stage yet. So we're gonna have to be a little bit more patient with it and let it develop a custom battle mode. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of Sprocket down below in the comment section, and I shall see you guys soon for more videos.